We're recording today at Salesforce Connections in beautiful Chicago, Illinois, and today I have Kevin Siminski, Chief Customer Officer for Agentforce Marketing at Salesforce. Kevin rejoined Salesforce in the fall of 2025, and he has spent 15 years immersed in the MarTech world and works extensively with customers executing complex digital transformation initiatives. His new role is focused on driving the adoption, go-to-market, and customer enablement of Agentforce Marketing product portfolio. Previously, Kevin served as the Senior Vice President of Marketing Cloud Platform Product Team, and before Salesforce roles, he had roles at The Basement, a boutique ad tech agency, AT&T, and Indiana University. Today on the show, we talk about the ever-evolving names of Salesforce products, the recently announced acquisition of Contentful, and what the future of AI plus Salesforce looks like. That and much more with Kevin Siminski.
Are you ready to go beyond the basics of marketing? I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Beyond, where I chat with the world's leading chief marketing officers and business innovators to share ideas that spark change and inspire you to challenge the status quo. Join us as we explore the future of marketing and its endless potential.
Well, Kevin, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, I know when we previously chatted, you took a gap year, and I want to ask about what happened during your gap year.
Yeah, gap year was a very interesting time of life. I left Salesforce in 2023, having been at Salesforce for 14 years. It was time for a break, right? I went to a small startup. Things didn't work the way expected. And I decided, at that time, it was important to take a gap year. My family was going through some very significant personal challenges. My youngest daughter at the time was 10 years old, was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer, and it was an important time for me to be very present with the family. Yeah. Help her navigate, her health challenges. Thankfully, she's made a full recovery, full remission, so we're grateful. But
it's amazing.
But for the year, right? It was just you hear the topic of just being present. How do you be present? How do you show up? And for my family, it was emotional support. It was being there, helping my daughter through the treatments, the after effects of treatment. So yeah. It was a great time. It brought our entire family closer together. Yeah. And we came out of it really, really strong. We came out of it stronger. You never think about like what that does to you, but it made our family stronger. And thankfully it was all resolved. So the gap year was a great year for us.
I'm happy that she's doing great. And that you guys got to be stronger. Yeah. And what a privilege to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course. It's an important part of who I am today.
Yeah.
It's you always talk about the separation between your personal life and your work life. You try and do that, right? But the reality is it gets the nature of life. It's so interconnected. Yeah. And you've got to take that for what it's worth. I think about like agentic capability, agentic transformation. It was part of our journey, like, how to leverage all that data and bring it together and understand what's happening from a personal perspective. And, all those platforms helped me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, thinking about that and just like the knowledge that you can extract using those tools
100%,
today,
100%.
Especially going something so complex.
Yes.
Making sense of even what the specialists are telling you.
Yes.
I mean, I can only imagine. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you are back at Salesforce.
I am.
You were at Salesforce for many years.
I was.
What brought you back to Salesforce?
So what brought me back? Over the 14 years, at Salesforce, before I left, I was part of the ExactTarget. So I literally was here from day one of the acquisition. And one of the very first things that I was asked 30 days after we were acquired by Salesforce was, well, when is ExactTarget going to re-platform on top of the Salesforce core platform? That was 13 years ago. And we had a lot of discussion about it, and it took us a long time. We finally have that today.
Right.
That's one of the reasons I came back. Was I want to help our customers with this transformation, this digital transformation. I'm a firm believer in convergence. I'm a firm believer in how do we bring all these complex processes together. What a better place to do that at Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
You get, I get the privilege of sitting, in front of, some of the world's largest organizations, as well as some of the world's most agile organizations, helping them, navigate this transformation. That's honestly why I came back. I missed it. It was so exciting, and it couldn't be happier to be here today.
So you are the Chief Customer Officer for Agentforce Marketing.
Correct.
So Agentforce Marketing, Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Help me with the names.
Yes, Agentforce Marketing.
Right.
That is our portfolio name.
Okay.
You really hopefully put an end to that discussion. Agentforce Marketing is the portfolio name.
Okay.
Underneath the portfolio, we obviously have, we have our products. We have our products called Marketing Cloud Engagement,
Mm-hmm.
Marketing Cloud Account Engagement. We have Marketing Cloud Next, which is our new platform built on top of the Salesforce core platform.
Okay.
So if you walk away with two things, from here, it's Agentforce Marketing is the portfolio umbrella, and inside it we have Marketing Cloud Next.
Okay. All right. Thank you for clearing that up.
Absolutely.
Thank you for clearing that up. So you've got you have a new or like increased focus on adopting products, and it's kind of a core part of your role. Like, how do I get people to adopt these products, use them? What's the catalyst for that being a big part of your role?
Yeah. So obviously, as Salesforce innovates, as we release new capabilities into the market, the first and most important thing we want to think about, not 6 months after we release something. We literally want to think about, how do we help customers approach adoption on day zero? Mm-hmm. Literally from the very first moment, from the moment we release our software, how do we create those incentives, those catalysts to help customers realize the value of the platform? And over the years, we have built the cornerstones of our foundation. The probably one of the most important pillars or cornerstones of this foundation is data.
Yeah. Right.
How do we think about data? Data is the data 360. It is the foundation of where Salesforce is built. So we purposely have to get our customers thinking about data strategy. Once you have your data strategy, the fact that we have the common platform, now we have the ability to see all of our products, whether it's sales, service, marketing, loyalty, commerce, they all have access to that common data foundation.
Right.
And that in itself creates a very powerful adoption motion for our customers, because for many years, our customers have lived in two very different systems. We've had the Salesforce core platform,
mm-hmm.
incredibly powerful, sales, service, all the pieces. And then we have our B2C platform or B2B platform, which was Marketing Cloud.
Right.
And we had a lot of interconnectors built to try and kind of wrangle data from system A to system B. Now with it inherently being built on the same platform, that process becomes much easier, and it creates this almost frictionless path for our customers to aggressively adopt all of the features. And that's really where my role, my team's role is really out there to be that catalyst for change for our customers.
Right. So making the switch or moving into the new platform, because of that combination, it sounds like it's a little easier. Still work to be done, but a little
There's still
easier.
work to be done. I would say there are pieces of it that are much easier.
Right.
There are pieces of it that are a little bit different.
Okay.
And I think that's the piece that we want to help customers with. We want to help our customers navigate that path that creates the least amount of resistance for our customers. So yes, we have intentionally tried to make this as easy as possible for our customers, and hopefully you see that with our products.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, with new introductions of tools, there's always myths that exist in the ether. What myths should we bust today?
So, the myths. 1, is Marketing Cloud Engagement our current platforms, are they going away?
Right.
Absolutely not. Like I've over the last, having been back at Salesforce for 7 months now, that's one of the common questions I'm literally asked all the time. What's happening with our platforms? Absolutely nothing. We are still innovating on our existing platforms. When you think about some of the exciting capabilities that we're talking about here at Connections, one of them is we're bringing MCP support to Marketing Cloud Engagement. Right. So we're bolting on, this support with MCP, Model Context Protocol, to enable essentially a headless experience with a platform that for 20 plus years has had a very, complex UI.
Right.
So that's myth number one that I want to bust. Myth number two, and this is an important one, is you don't have to tackle migrations.
Right.
Like, migrations, that is a word that instills fear in so many chief technology officers, chief marketing officers, CIOs, right?
Yeah.
We have created a powerful bridge that connects Marketing Cloud engagement or Marketing Cloud account engagement with Marketing Cloud Advanced, right? So a couple important distinctions there. One, we have one platform now.
Right.
How many times in the past have I had to have the conversation with our customers? Do we use, I'll use the legacy product or our original product. Do I use ExactTarget or do I use Pardot? Right. And and as a marketer, you've had to make a very deliberate choice. Now with Marketing Cloud Advanced having the capabilities for both B2C and B2B, guess what? You don't have to make that decision anymore.
Right.
You have those capabilities in the same platform.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, so big news this week. You guys entered into an agreement to buy Contentful.
Yes.
Which is a big push in the headless CMS. We were just talking about the MCP feature to make headless experience. Now we're talking headless CMS. I know you probably can't talk about the deal specifics.
Yes.
But tell me what the push in the headless and headless CMS might do for you.
So content's a huge part of our portfolio, right? When you think about our customers, how do you build content? How do you create? How does that whole process unfold? Like we have always thought about, the importance of content. This acquisition is incredibly exciting, and there will be a lot of details coming, as we get closer, as we close the transaction, which is scheduled to close in Q3. So while I can't share a lot of the details, just know right now, we are incredibly excited about the addition of this product to our portfolio. We look forward to the close of the acquisition, and it's going to bring some exciting capabilities to Marketing Cloud.
Yeah, I love it. Well, that's one investment that you're making, but you guys are also investing in Anthropic. You're adding these features with MCP, being able to tie in with other providers of AI tools. What does the end game look like in an AI universe with Salesforce at the center of it?
Yeah, so the data foundation that we are grounding our agents upon, it's an incredibly rich platform. We also recognize that our customers, you're investing in significant agents across your ecosystem. You might be developing your own agents. You might have your own LLMs. And in the world that we're thinking about is how do we bring all of that together, right? How do we create those interconnections, agent to agent interconnections that, we've intentionally made this very, very open because we want to see those, third-party agents interfacing with our agents. We want to see the concept of super agents proliferate. And the beautiful part about this is with the data foundations that we've established, the controls that we've established, it allows you to have that granular, really customized approach where you can bring together those third-party agents, those third-party LLMs, and into the Salesforce ecosystem and really seamlessly interconnect it all.
Yeah.
So it's the possibilities are endless right now.
Yeah. Well, and I will say the one thing that's exciting to me as a practitioner and somebody that advises clients as well is that openness component, which is a big move for the company and all of the solutions that you guys have. And the fact that you have, you're talking about Data Cloud or Data 360, and all of the various components, you're in an environment where you made me, correct me if I get this wrong. You're in an environment where potentially an LLM or an agent is instructing the assembly and the fabric that you guys own to create the experiences for customers. And in a way where maybe we get to a place where humans are checking it and designing it from sitting back and watching the agents work. But that's pretty exciting to think about yourself as the fabric around all of this that kind of builds all the connection points. If that makes sense.
It really is.
That's the way you're seeing it too.
Absolutely. Like, one of the analogies I frequently use in talking to our customers is, being, in the role that I am, I travel a lot. I spend a lot of times on airplanes. So over the years, I'm very interested in lots of things. I've always been fascinated by flight. The fact is not lost on me that, when I'm sitting on an airplane, realize there's an autopilot system literally at the captain and the first officer's fingertips. That flight, that instrument autopilot system literally can start the plane. It can navigate the ground at the airports. It can literally take the plane off, put it in a cruising altitude, configure the plane for landing, land the plane, and take it back to the gate, all without human interaction.
Right.
Am I suggesting that that's where we're at with marketing automation? No, but what I am suggesting is there are pieces of that system, very, 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 very parallel similarities between what we were saying is, maybe a marketer, one of the most important things marketers do every single day is they build something called a campaign brief. That campaign brief is essentially their instruction set of how to build a campaign, who's approving it, what's the audience look like, what's the strategy look like, what's the orchestration processes look like, what's the exit criteria look like. There are elements of that campaign brief that certainly can be automated. Like when I always love asking our clients that question is, how long does it take to develop a campaign and orchestrate a campaign? Some will say, it's a 3-month process. Some will say it's longer. Some will say, it's a week. Some might say, we want to get it to a place where it's a day or less.
Right.
The AI capabilities that we are building are going to help our marketers do just that.
Right.
They can choose and pick, like, what areas do they want to really lean into? Maybe one day they're comfortable with taking the hands off the flight controls,
right,
and letting the system do what it's supposed to do, like literally do all of it.
Yeah.
Are we there yet? Probably not.
Right.
Do we have the capabilities to do that today? Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, I want to transition gears.
Yes.
One of the things I love to do is get to know you a little bit better. And my favorite question to ask everyone that comes on the show is there experience of your past that defines or makes up who you are today? Yeah,
no, that's a great question. When I think about professionally, like, many, many years ago, when I started with in the workspaces, I actually started in a completely different part of the industry. I was in the telecommunications world, building high-speed optical networks, and working with lasers and making sure that we can move all of this data around the world as fast as possible. And one of the things that struck me very early on in my career was, engineers, right? You tend to get the stereotype of, you sit behind a keyboard, you sit behind a large monitor, you have your headphones on, and you don't talk to anybody. Which, nothing wrong with that. However, as an engineer in the telecommunications world, I felt it was important to listen to my customers and spend time away from the keyboard, from out behind the monitor. So that very early on in my career, the importance of the customer was really emphasized. And as my career progressed, I realized that, whether I was in an engineering operations role, whether I was in a product management role, whether I was in a customer role, the intersection of, those three elements is where I love to live. That's the space that I feel the most comfortable. And I'm often asked, like, Kevin, you walk into very difficult conversations all of the time. Like, how do you think about that? And my true feeling is, any interaction that I have with a customer, whether it's positive,
Right.
whether it's neutral, whether it's negative, is an opportunity. Like, I have dealt with many challenging conversations, and out of those conversations, I've developed some incredible personal relationships over the years that have transcended, the business. Then they're now personal friends because of a negative experience.
Right.
And so I just really firmly believe that intersection of the customer, the technology, the product is so important.
Yeah, I love that notion of coming out stronger than you went in.
Yeah.
And I think in some cases that negative context and working the problem together does forge a new relationship.
It does.
Potential.
Absolutely does.
As long as you work the problem,
Absolutely.
find resolution.
Absolutely.
Well, what advice would you give your younger self if you were starting this journey all over again?
Gosh, what advice would I give my younger self? One, it would be listening. Just be very intentful with listening to our customers. Listen with passion. The second piece would be really make sure there's so much happening. Make sure you take those key insights that you're listening for and do something with them. I often think about the notebooks. We still see notebooks appear in conferences. They're always sitting on the desk.
Yeah.
And often you write those notes down, right? And they're just an artifact of a meeting that never really happens. And I think the important thing is tell yourself, your younger self, is make sure you have a system to capture. Make sure you have a system to act upon those artifacts. That's where I'm really excited about today, because all this technology, I can consume so much information. I can produce really meaningful insights with a couple clicks.
Right.
So.
No, that's very true. Well, what are you trying to learn more about yourself right now?
Gosh, what am I trying to learn more? I'm fascinated by this role of where agentic capabilities are moving. We are moving at light speed. I think about this technology transformation we're on. I can't think of a moment today that's comparable. It probably the only thing that would be comparable today to where we're at today was really when the web browser became predominant in, let's say 1995, 96, when web was really starting to take off. That's the only comparison point that I have, is I just see the rate of change literally every day. It feels very much like that time.
Right.
So I'm just really immersing myself in all of the technology, and really trying to understand it.
Yeah. Well, and it does feel very much like that time. And with the exception that I think it might be going faster.
I think it is.
Because all that data already exists.
I think it is.
So for consumption.
Yeah.
Well, as you look out in the world today, is there anything you're curious about? Just you're that's interesting. What's going on over there?
One of the things I am very interested in, outside the technology is, I love using my hands. I'm an artist. I love building, and I think in today's world, I think the trades, as an example, are really an interesting inflection point. You think about just how do you get people with experience in things like woodworking or electrical or plumbing, all those things that happen. I mean, I think there's an inevitable proliferation of kind of regrounding in those spaces, and you're going to see a lot of just much more focus on that. That's something that agents don't help with, right? They don't solve your hands-on problem. So I love leaning into that part of the world, that analog part of the world that is still very much grounded in rich tradition, rich history. And how do you make more with it? Right.
I'm seeing that. I have an 18-year-old daughter going to college, hopefully going to study aerospace engineering this fall. And there is as I watched many college presentations, there is a shift towards mechanical engineering in many disciplines. I mean, computer science is still there, still going to be there for decades, as far as I believe. But that notion of getting hands-on, the things that can't be solved without a human, It's kind of interesting and a little bit exciting in the aspect of how much talent can we apply to those challenges now in new ways and different ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of
You think aerospace, complex metal forging. Like, how does technology influence that? Like, CNC is a great example.
Yeah.
CNC it's not a new technology. CNC is a very simple set of machine languages that have been around for many, many years. How do these platforms start leveraging the advances? It's fascinating.
Yeah,
it's absolutely fascinating.
Well, as you look at the marketing landscape today, what do you feel like is the largest opportunity or potential threat facing marketers right now?
I think the largest opportunity and threat is kind of one and the same. I think it's how do we enable the workforce to leverage the technology in a safe, in an efficient manner to help accelerate the jobs that marketers are doing, but also in a way that is safe. Organizations, AI adoption in organizations, a very, very complex topic, right? You have rules, you have regulations, you have so much happening that dictates how organizations can leverage this technology. We want to make sure marketers understand how to approach this in a safe manner, and we want to make sure we are providing some of those capabilities.
All right, awesome. Well, last question, as I bring it a little closer, we're at Connections, if you can't hear, if you're listening to this conversation. And you're very close to the technology, you're very close to customers and practitioners. What do you feel like is the biggest opportunity maybe marketers are just underestimating that's right there in front of them?
I think, one, it's the question of how do marketers interact with technology. There's always been this notion of organizational silos that exist between the CMOs and the chief digital officers and the chief technology officers. I think the opportunity is how do you start kind of removing those lines and those barriers and the silos to allow the organizations to work closely together. We at Salesforce often think about how do we enable just that? And we're building some of that into our platform. How do we make it easier? So we want to make sure marketers walked away from this event energized. We want to also make sure they walk away with the right answers. So when they want to start talking about adopting this technology, they don't run into the roadblocks of like, oh, I can't access this because I don't have the permissions because they're in another part of the organization. We want to arm the marketers with the tools, the questions, and the ability to start asking and enabling this transformation.
Well, Kevin, thanks for coming on the show.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate it, and thank you for sponsoring this opportunity for us.
Hi, it's Alan again. Marketing Beyond is a Deloitte digital podcast. It's created and hosted by me, Alan Hart, and produced by Sam Robertson. We have even more cutting-edge marketing insights headed your way. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to stay up to date with our latest episodes. I love hearing from listeners. Share your thoughts about the episode, the topic covered, or the show by commenting on this video or emailing me at marketingbeyond@deloitte.com. If you're interested in more conversations with industry visionaries, we invite you to explore other Deloitte Digital podcasts at deloittedigital.com/US/podcast. There you'll find the Marketing Beyond webpage with complete show notes and links to what we discussed in the episode today. I'm Alan Hart, and this is Marketing Beyond.